Welcome to Sunshine Cathedral's Queer God Squad. It's Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. I am Reverend Dr. Darrell Watkins, the Senior Minister here at Sunshine Cathedral.
I am Reverend Dr. Robert Griffin, the Executive Minister. Faith and religion can be complicated for the LGBTQ plus community, and also a tongue twister sometimes, but surveys show that evangelical faith is the justification for the greatest attacks on the LGBTQ plus community.
I am Reverend Kevin Tisdall, the Minister of Education. The Queer God Squad is going to explore our religious community. Let's explore the big news of the day and what it means to you.
I am Reverend Dr. Ann Atwell, the Minister of Connections. This is live, and then we are available on demand. If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform and social media.
At Sunshine Cathedral, we are here to tell you that you're God's miracle, not God's mistake.
This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. How old is too old to lead? President Biden decided not to seek a second term as U.S. president. At 81, some viewed him as too old to continue in leadership, while others felt that it was ageist. Maxine Waters is a year older, and she seems indefatigable. Maybe how old is too old should be judged case by case, or maybe we should never assume that age is necessarily an impediment to achievement, or maybe sometimes it is. What do you think? The average age in Congress is over 60. Ruth Ginsberg refusal to retire led to her dying on the bench at 87, giving an opening for the most right-wing and anti-choice court in decades. There are currently over 100 federal judges eligible for partial or full retirement. NBC News reports that 97-year-old Judge Pauline Newman, who is the oldest full-time federal judge on the bench, appointed to a lifetime term in 1984, is struggling with her colleagues to keep her job. She refuses to take a neurological exam to prove competency. Until the matter is settled, she isn't able to hear cases. Newman says, and I quote, "It's been devastating to me. It is as if my entire lifetime, a good deal of which has been devoted to this business, is of no meaning," end quote. How can we make sure that people of all ages feel needed, useful, and appreciated? How determined are we to make sure our queer elders are treated with respect that they deserve? What is the role of elders in our time? You know, I have always, as a kid growing up, I always appreciated sitting around elders, because the elders was the wisdom people. They always had something, and this is part of the time, like, kids were seen and not heard, so all you had to do was listen. And so I had a great appreciation for being around older people as I grew up. And now as I have reached that age of older, it makes me appreciate more now hearing and seeing active elders leading and guiding our community and shaping our future differently than what I was as a kid growing up. I think President Biden will be forever remembered and honored and cherished in his legacy for being the one who said, you know what, this is not about me, this is about country. And I think that decision for him was not even about his age. It was about what is the right thing to do. Yeah. And that was what he felt was the right thing to do. And as far as other ones who were in that age group, or someone who were a little bit older than he is, again, like it may be a case. It needs to be a case by case, and not everybody fits the same model mold. Mm-hmm. And it needs to be case by case, because there are some who are just as fit as fiddles can be, and that can run a marathon. And maybe there's others who say, I can't run a marathon, but I can sit here and hold theological conversations or judicial conversations and do that deep thinking and that critical thinking that can also help to lead to landmark decisions in our country that benefits everyone. But I think wherever you fall with it, I fall with an appreciation for the elder part of our community, because they have something still until they're done to give us in wisdom, to give us and sharing knowledge that we may or may not ever be able to tap into again, because they live at and through a time and period that we will never know about.
Right.
Yeah.
They saw things. I'm just thinking about, to President Biden now. He saw things in his lifetime that we will probably never see in ours. And we have a new opportunity to see things in different leadership as it comes along. But we have to appreciate that legacy that's all out there, not only with him, but also with other elders, and especially with elders in the queer community as well.
Yeah.
sometimes it's so very easy to often to be pushed aside or to be forgotten about in our community, and especially our elder community is one of them. And so I just want to highlight and lift up the elders in the queer community, that they are equally as important to our movement as they have always been, to sharing and imparting knowledge with younger queer people who would say, well, I didn't have to fight that when I was a kid growing up. That was all about y'all, and we don't have to do it anymore. Listen to the stories, because the stories are empowering. They're important, and it's important to know from whence you came from.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And you may have to fight the battle again after all.
Yes.
And then that's that.
Be nice if you know the plans, how we did it. But also there is this thread of ageism in the discussion. That I don't know how to get around. I hope we can figure out how to get around it, because the truth is, there are people who are in their triple digits that you wish at 60 or 70 you had what they've got going on.
Yeah.
And there are people my age and younger that couldn't pour piss out of a boot. So I think it's about capacity.
Yes.
It is about capacity. And like Ruth Bader Ginsberg, she wasn't going to live forever. But as long as she was alive, she was functional. She had a personal trainer. She beat cancer or held it back for decades. Her mind was as sharp, I guess, the last day she was alive as ever. So we sometimes were mad at her that she just didn't accept that she's old and get out of our way because now someone else is going to take a seat or whatever. That she wasn't politically strategic with her death or whatever. But meanwhile, a good jurist was still a good jurist. Why should she quit it just because that didn't fit in with your political philosophy or your political plans or whatever? That this woman, who with cancer was doing push-ups and planks every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
God bless her, man.
So,
And you remember how upset we were that Justice Thurgood Marshall
yeah, when he resigned, and they said, why are you resigning? He said, because I'm old and coming apart. And then he died a year later. I was madder the day he died because I'm like, we could have had another year. We could have had your protection for another year. And so I don't know. There are old people I revere. There are young people who are just geniuses and like, oh my God, I wish at 16 I had going on what you have going on at 16. People have capacity. Let's admire the capacity.
Yeah.
And there's also nothing wrong with, I can't do what I used to do anymore. And if you need to slow down, let's just let people do what they need to do. I love working, and I'm 96, and I'm still good at what I do. Have at it. Some people would want to be golfing and gardening, but if this is what you want to do, you've earned the right to do what you can do. And if you can do this, keep it up. Other people who retire, they have arranged it that they can retire at 50 or 55. They just want out of the work, and so they can travel or play or whatever. Do you? Yeah. So the idea that there's this idea that you might just one day be too old to matter, and maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I resent that. I reject that. I just don't think it's true. We've had presidents in their 70s and now 80s. We've had presidents in their 40s. We've had people run in their 30s. Yeah. And I have voted all up and down that age line because age wasn't what I was voting for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. If you can't handle it, you can't handle it. And maybe that's because, of age-related stuff. But if you can handle it, you can handle it. And if you want to, it is ageist to just assume that you should quit, that you should just stop or whatever. And so, I have some conflicting, we want to make rooms for the young kids and all their energy. We also want to keep the wisdom and experience of let's just value everyone who's given something. You know what I mean? And maybe that's naive, and maybe I just need to get in my rocker and shut up and pat my cat or whatever, but watch Matlock. But I think that people who have something to give who want to give it, we should appreciate that and take what they've got to give.
I like that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that if people want to lead and they're effective in leading,
that's the thing.
If they're effective in leading, I've often said that about myself. I want to work to this age as long as I'm effective. And it may be just sitting down with the three of you and some others and saying, is what I'm doing still working? Is it right? Because it's people that you trust.
And if not, what can I still do?
Exactly.
Maybe I need to go 3/4 time or be a consultant or...
Exactly. Do you need input on this, or how can I help?
I don't want to do this at this level anymore. It doesn't mean I got nothing else to give.
Exactly. I think a lot of times it's just sitting down, listening to others around you, others that would trust, that you trust and would be honest with you. You know, if you're effective, yay, have at it. If others think, maybe you need to step back a little bit, or this is what I'm saying. Time to think about it.
Right. I mean, I don't think that, we're apolitical. We don't have political opinions. We certainly don't share political opinions, not us. But just for the sake of argument, let's say that Trump is terrible. Would he have been less terrible 30 years ago?
I can tell you that he wasn't.
See, that's not an age thing. He's just a terrible person.
I work for a company.
Allegedly.
I worked for a company that did business with him, and he was a piece of shit back then.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say that?
Right. So age didn't make him better or worse.
No.
He just was always
it was
bad.
just who he was.
Yeah.
The conversation that we're having, for me, boils down to a couple of things. People, as they age, hopefully gain some wisdom in something. And that wisdom is what I'll be 69, or I just turned 69 recently, and I still think I've got a lot to offer. I can offer what Reverend Robert was talking about, history. What was the world like when queer folk didn't have many rights? And the rights that they had really had to be hidden, and you had to be quiet. You don't know how many movie stars got married just because they wanted to keep working. You have no idea of how many judges and lawyers and doctors were married, and a lot of times it was a gay guy and a lesbian woman that were getting married, never had children, but in order for them to fit into society, they had to do that. This is the kind of thing that we can offer the younger folk, a bridge between what is now and what was. I was 13 years old when Stonewall happened. I was 18 years old, 17 years old when the American Psychological Association said that being queer was not a dis-ease. Think about that. In my lifetime, these things happened. I remember thinking that I was getting over on my mother or everything that I was doing. And she would say to me, do you think that I have not lived and done that before you? So, yes, age is one of those things that definitely it's individual. What can you do at what age? If you are at an age where you are no longer able to fully function in something that you used to do, like we're saying here, there's something else that you can do. There's wisdom that you can impart on people that they have no idea of what was going on. We talked about the queer community. I talk about the queer African-American Black community. There's so much so much prejudice in the African-American community that's beginning to change, but still I can tell you stories about what was. And those stories are important because the past dictates history and dictates the future. Because it's better now. The reason that it's better now is because all those people before you stood in line, sat at the counter at Woolworths, protested, said, I am tired of being treated like a second-class citizen. And if you forget that there was a fight to make sure that you are not treated as a second-class citizen, you're going to go back. Somebody said the other day that the fire hoses that were trained on the protesters, that wasn't the first time that those fire hoses were trained on those people.
Oh, no.
That was the first time that the media picked up on them. That changes everything. So if we can, at 69, light up the world for you just a little bit more than it was, then I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm going to do it as well as I can until I cannot do it anymore, and then I'll find something else to do to help you.
Someone asked me one time, why do you tell all these age stories? It's treatable now. We can treat people. We can keep them alive. Because it wasn't always like that. And you have to know why you can survive it now. Because a lot of people didn't. And they didn't a lot more people died than needed to because we had a government that spent 7 out of its 8 years administration not acknowledging that it existed because of the community that was most impacted at the time. And I remember being at Brown Chapel AME in Montgomery and having people who are still there who remember all of that madness.
Yes.
And they remember, like, because they were little girls at the time or whatever, and they were telling us, like, the terror of being inside as people are running to the church for safety and the horses coming up to the door, up the steps, all the way to the door, chasing them on horseback, well onto the property. Wow. And you know, you're 10 years old witnessing this or whatever.
Right.
And so, yeah, if things are better, it's because they were worse.
Yeah.
And those of us who've lived through that,
Need to know.
you know, we want you to know your history so that you can help forge a better. If you think it's good enough, you're hosed. It's terrible. It's not. It's never good enough. But you can know how to make it better if you remember how it got better to start with.
Yes.
And I think a part of it also is our societal norm around ageism.
Yeah.
It is based upon retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's a mindset that goes with it. Oh, well, you're past retirement. You need to go sit down.
Yeah.
And I think that's a part of that whole thing that affects the psyche, and while people will also place judgment on, you're too old to do this any longer. You're past age retirement. You should retire and just go sit on the front porch and drink tea.
And capitalism is part of that too.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because we don't have universal health care.
Right.
So if I am your employer and I have to pay for your insurance, well, you're at a certain age. You need to go so that you can take Medicare.
Medicare.
Now that may actually be absolutely necessary, especially among small business. I've got to count every penny to keep the doors open. But if we had universal health care, you could work as long as you loved working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would have to like push you out so that I wouldn't have to pay your health insurance.
That's interesting. Never thought of
That's
that.
capitalism.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
part of our societal thing, and ageism is all connected
Yeah.
to capitalism. Yeah. it's all
There you go.
Everything's intersection.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Intersectionality.
Nice.
Well, that's today with the Queer God Squad. We want to thank you for joining us. We're here today and every day at 3 p.m. to have some fun and to discuss what our LGBTQ plus community is talking about.
Sunshine Cathedral is the world's largest progressive queer church. Progressive, queer, and God are words that naturally should go together. And we are all in this together. Remember that.
You are God's miracle, not God's mistake.
Until next time, we are the Queer God Squad. Goodbye.